right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Newark. Thank you for joining us here in person today. And I think we still have people on Zoom. Just so you're aware, we've had some technical challenges. And just like everything, when we get through the challenges, we'll be better on the other side. But bear with us today if things aren't super smooth. So, I'm Rachel Coffey, and my pronouns are she, her. And I am one of your worship associates today. We just kind of blend the worship associate and the service together. I have been coming to UUFN since 1999, which wasn't as much of a party as it was supposed to be. But I found UUFN through doing a service when I was at Tri-State Bird Rescue. Alan and I came and did a service about wildlife conservation, and we're like, what kind of a church, talks about wildlife conservation in a service? We need to check this out. And we've been coming back ever since. We were married by the minister, Greg Shute, in 2000, and when our kids came, we decided to join and have been here ever since. So I have participated in many different aspects and different ways at UUFN, and currently the Volunteer Empowerment Committee is taking most of my energy that's given to the UUFN, and that's who's presenting the service today. So we will let you know a little bit about what we're doing and how we think belongs in our committee. So Nancy and Julia are gonna start us off.
Good morning. We light our chalice today with an open heart, with resolve and in hope that we can nurture this tiny flame to grow into a welcoming hearth. We light this chalice with reverence for this place, for this time, and for each other. We light this chalice with all of us longing to belong, longing to be ourselves and to be accepted. Belonging is an integral part of human existence. We are more alike than we are different.
In May of 2022, Vivek Murthy, the U.S. Surgeon General, gave the first ever advisory
Loneliness is far more than just a bad feeling. Being socially disconnected, which can range from feeling alone to being isolated, is bad both for individual and societal health. Research shows that loneliness and isolation are associated with a greater risk of heart disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and premature death. In fact, lacking connection can increase the risk of premature death to levels comparable to smoking daily. Loneliness and social isolation are also far more common than we might realize. About 1 in 2 American adults report experiencing loneliness. Everyone can be impacted across all ages, socioeconomic conditions, and geographies. This widespread disconnection presents profound threats to our health and well-being. Social connection is as fundamental to our mental and physical health as food, water, and sleep. And it affects our performance and productivity at work, school, and in our communities. Now is the time to invest in building social connection. This first ever Surgeon General's advisory on our epidemic of loneliness and isolation shows us how. The keys to connection are simple. Answer a phone call from a friend. Invite someone over to share a meal. Listen and be present during conversation. Seek out opportunities to serve others. These steps may seem small, but they're extraordinarily powerful. By strengthening our relationships, we can improve our heart and brain health, reduce our risk of diabetes and high blood pressure, boost our immune systems, and lower our risk of depression. We can build lives and communities that are healthier and happier, and we can ensure our country and the world are better poised than ever to take on the challenges that lie ahead. Visit surgeongeneral.gov/connection to learn more.
So we're now going to do some personal reflections and sharing on belonging. So that's going to be the bulk of the service. And you'll get to participate later.
So this is not a personal reflection. This is a reading from a book that I love by Kwame Appiah called Cosmopolitanism. And he introduces his book with the chapter, Making Conversation. Our ancestors have been human for a very long time. If a normal baby girl born 40,000 years ago were kidnapped by a time traveler and raised in a normal family in New York City, she'd be ready for college in 18 years. She would learn English along with, who knows, Spanish or Chinese, understand trigonometry, follow baseball and pop music. She'd probably want a pierced tongue and a couple of tattoos, and she would be unrecognizably different from the brothers and sisters she left behind. For most of human history, we were born into small societies of a few score people, bands of hunters and gatherers, and would see, on a typical day, only people we had known most of our lives. Everything our long ago ancestors ate or wore, every tool they used, every shrine at which they worshiped, was made within that group. Their knowledge came from their ancestors or from their own experiences. That is the world that shaped us, the world in which our nature was formed. Now, if I walk down New York's Fifth Avenue on an ordinary day, I will have within sight more human beings than most of those prehistoric hunter-gatherers saw in a lifetime. Between them, then and now, some of our forebears settled down and learned agriculture, created village, towns, and in the end, cities, discovered the power of writing. But that was a slow process. The population of classical Athens when Socrates died at the end of the 5th century BC could have lived in a few large skyscrapers. Alexander set off from Macedon to conquer the world 3/4 of a century later with an army of between 30 and 40,000, which is fewer people than commute into Newark every day. So it is, I think, a little short of miraculous that brains shaped by our long history could have been turned into our new way of life. Even once we started to build larger societies, most people knew little about the ways of other tribes and could affect just a few local lives. Only in the past couple of centuries, as every human community has gradually been drawn into a single web of trade and a global network of information, have we come to the point where each of us can realistically imagine contacting any other of our 8 billion conspecifics and sending that person something worth having, a radio, an antibiotic, a good idea. Unfortunately, we could also send through negligence as easily as malice things that will cause harm, a virus, an airborne pollutant, a bad idea. And of course, with the advent of the worldwide web of information, we can affect lives everywhere. And we can learn about life everywhere, too. Each person you know about and can affect is someone to whom you have responsibilities. To say this is just to affirm the very idea of morality. The challenge, then, is to take minds and hearts formed over the long millennia of living in local troops and equip them with ideas and institutions that will allow us to live together as the global tribe we have become. He ends the chapter by saying, depending on the circumstances, conversations across boundaries can be delightful or just vexing, but what they mainly are is inevitable.
I frequently hear UUs say that we are like-minded, we are all like-minded people. This has always troubled me. Maybe one really meant something else, like we all bend to the liberal side. I looked up on the UUA's Association's website to see what our national organization had to say. It says, Unitarian Universalists are a liberal religious association of UU congregations. That's it. So if liberal is a range of being, which I think it is, we bend in that direction, but we are not like-minded. I believe that being like-minded is a UU mythology. A mythology being a story about a specific culture, a religion, or any group with shared beliefs. UUs don't have specific beliefs or creeds, but I would still like to make the case that some believe we are like-minded when we are not. Here's something to ponder. If I don't always think like you, do I still belong here? Without the filter of this UU mythology, we can look more clearly at each other as individuals. I will give some examples of how we are not like-minded, and you're free to laugh. We do not love the same food. Food is love. We do not love the same. Food is love, gifts are love, hugs are love. For some, giving space is love. We all do family different. Traditional families, chosen families, blended families, multiracial families, no children families, friends and community as families. We do not all vote the same, believe it or not. We have had people in this congregation registered as Democrats, Republicans, Independent, Libertarian, and Green Party, and I can call them out. We have fun in different ways. Some love roller coasters. Some think a back porch swing is enough. Some of us love only classical music. And I know for a fact there are some heavy metal people here among us, and I can call you out too. We are pluralistic faith. We pursue different theologies or beliefs. It is a myth that we all do not believe in God here, or a higher power, or source, the universe. Some of us do believe in some sort of afterlife. Call these your personal mythologies if you wish. The point is we are not like-minded. However, we are more alike than we are different. We come from different ethnic cultures, different races, different genders, some non-binary, different sexual orientations, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different educational levels, different skill sets. We all have a different idea as to what is healthy and what tastes good. The UUFN has a diversity, so we could not possibly be like-minded. Okay, here's a little survey. Show of hands. How many people like dark chocolate? How many people like milk chocolate? How many people like white chocolate or even think that's chocolate? Yeah. Belonging is a spiritual practice. According to Brene Brown, a research professor, PhD, and licensed medical social worker, quote, belonging is a spiritual practice that involves believing in and belonging to oneself so deeply that one can share their authentic self with the world. It is the opposite of fitting in, which involves changing oneself to make others like one, unquote. Do I belong here? or am I trying to fit in? Have I been welcoming of others who have a different theology, personality, or a different way of being in the world that is unlike mine? Or do I believe in the UU mythology that we are all like-minded, rainbows and unicorns? Causing me to believe that if I don't fit in, do I really belong? Do I belong here? Get involved, maybe, it may be a spiritual group or a social group, coming to a potluck, sitting with people you don't usually sit with, joining others in practicing spiritual belonging. We can be different, but still belong to a liberal community by participating in social justice, joining book bums, making coffee. Atheists, create a fun group, share your beliefs. Come to the service auction and have fun together. We can find common ground in this diverse community by being involved. So, heard of alchemy? Alchemy was a science of the Middle Ages trying to turn lead into gold. It was the precursor to modern-day chemistry. Have any of you heard of spiritual alchemy? Figures. It must be the spiritual buzzword of the day. Spiritual alchemy is the process of inner transformation and liberation. We all have the potential to transform our lives by aligning our thoughts, feelings, and actions with our highest, most authentic self. That's quite a thing. I'm talking about this because being authentic, your authentic self, is being on the path to belonging. I got this next piece of information from the UUA's website. It's called A Holy Alchemy by Kim Mason. Once upon a time, chemists believed that they could transform lead into gold or death into life. We laugh, but we are not also in the business. But are we not also in the business of alchemy? Turning loneliness into connection, pain into comfort, anger into solidarity, faith into action. The subtle magic of church combines love with justice, creates hope out of fear, transforms individuals into community. Here we engage in a holy alchemy, finding beauty in the ordinary and life in the present. Come, let us be transformed together. Practice spiritual belonging. Get involved. Where do you belong? Blessed be. And if we could have quote number 2.
Community is much more than belonging to something. It's about doing something together that makes belonging matter. That's from Brian Solis.
Many of you know that inclusion and belonging are the heart of my life work. I'm a retired special ed professor and turned consultant, and that passion is why I joined the Volunteer Empowerment Committee. I led a service in February that was on the topic of inclusion and belonging, and at that time, I talked about the dimensions of inclusion and about the value of having access to places and opportunities and what it means to be accepted unconditionally. So I wondered, what could I add today, given all of the wisdom that's up here behind me and the other pieces that you've heard? What could I contribute today about belonging that wouldn't just repeat what I've said before? So I decided to talk about 2 little action steps we could take here to promote belonging. I'll describe the experience of not belonging and offer some suggestions, and I hope you'll take it from there. Most of us know that human feeling of not belonging. I'm going to take a look at 2 types of not belonging, and I invite you to consider each of them from the experience of how it feels when you don't belong, which you probably have all experienced at some point in your life, and ponder what you could do to impact somebody real close to you who might be experiencing that. So, what can we do to increase the chances that others don't feel excluded? The first one I'm going to call, I'm invisible. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone who acts like they're listening, but they're really rehearsing what they're about to say? They're planning, oh, that's great. That reminds me of something amazing about me. I can't wait till you finish talking so I can tell you how amazing I am. But the person who's speaking right now feels invisible, especially when, as soon as they finish, maybe before they even finish their sentence, you've launched into an amazing thing about you and how wonderful you are. So that person is feeling invisible. Not uncommon, right? You've all experienced that of somebody else like, am I invisible? Or do you know I'm talking to you right now? So what if we practice deep listening? And as that person is speaking, we actually set aside that they're invisible and we really see them. And we listen with curiosity. What are they saying? What perspective are they sharing that might be something new? And what could we ask to find out something more about what they're talking about? So set aside how amazing I am and let me find out a little more about how amazing you are. And the intent would be that that person does not feel invisible. It could be a quick thing. The second one is, I'm different. Have you ever been in a group where you're different from most of the others that are gathered? Ever, yes. My daughter invited me to go as her +1 to a wedding. And she was a bridesmaid, so she was up at the bridal table. And I'm sitting with all these 30-somethings that are all talking about the long life they've had since they finished graduate school 2 years ago. And they're all talking about, what are you doing? And I'm sitting there going, I'm different from all of these other 30-somethings, and what do I have? So I thought, okay, how do I fit in here? So I asked them questions about them. What did you study? What are you doing now? Where do you live now? But you know what? I still felt like I'm different. I'm trying to fit in by being curious about them. And then one of the young ladies there turned and asked me about me. Tell me about you. Why are you here? You're Michelle's mom? And she was curious about me. I suddenly felt like I belonged. It was a magical moment because she noticed me. So I had been somewhat invisible and different, and because of her interest in me, I now felt like I belonged. So today during coffee hour, or any other gathering that you have in this group or anywhere, think about, what if that person I'm speaking to right now thinks they're invisible or thinks they're different? What could you do to be curious about them, to ask them something about what they're talking about? Just go a little deeper into, I see you. I think you're interesting. I think this is a place where you could belong. Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
True belonging is not passive. It's not the belonging that comes with just joining a group. It's not fitting in or pretending or selling out because it's safer. It's a practice that requires us to be vulnerable, get uncomfortable, and learn how to be present with people without sacrificing who we are. We want true belonging, but it takes tremendous courage to knowingly walk into hard moments. Brene Brown.
So I do want to note that Denise Harntranff is our fifth wheel of this bus, and she is, there's no Zoomer. I don't know if she's on Zoom today or not. She was unable to be here in person. But we are all very different, but have things that bring us together. So I'm just going to share a little bit about how I find how to belong, and other than just crying for everybody on the tear sponge or something, I don't know. But I need to do things to feel like I belong. And 5 years or so ago, I went to Susie for the first time, and I was really, really tired and wrung out from some experiences that I was having.
So would you say what that is, please, Susie?
Oh, yeah, I'm like, feeling tired and wrung out. I think everybody knows that one. Susie is the Southeastern UU Summer Institute, which is a gathering of UUs from across the Eastern South, and it's just amazing. They have lots of workshops and music and food and fun and nature and hiking and all this kind of stuff. And so I was really tired, and normally you can volunteer to, so you pay less tuition, which is always nice, and I was encouraged to just go enjoy it, don't sign up for anything. And I didn't, and I didn't connect. I just didn't connect. There was nothing to make that bridge for me. So that was a really big lesson for me, that for whatever reason it is, it feels to me that I have to give to connect. And that's how it worked for me here. I started with the landscape team, which was a big comfort for me, because if my hands are in the dirt, I'm happy. And the team just collected me and included me. And now here I am 20 years later. And but if I hadn't walked in and said, I want to help, I would not have made that connection. So I encourage you to do that, even if it's hard. But find something that isn't as hard as, don't join the board right away. That's not a great idea. Coffee is a great way to do that. Landscaping. Chairs, maybe not, because you're here alone when you do the chairs, or maybe you could join up with somebody and set up chairs. But just that little teeny thing, that little thing that you do, or where you go to the auction and meet people, it's just that first step that's the hardest. And I had one other thing that I was going to say, but I don't remember it right now. So now we're going to let you guys think about when you feel like you've belonged. What does it mean to you to belong? What does that feel like? And why do we seek that? So if you don't mind taking a moment and thinking about a time when you felt you belonged. It doesn't have to be here, anywhere. Could have been when you were, 7, or when you were 27, or whatever. But just to think about that feeling and to understand how that is what we're really all about. So just want to turn and share with a neighbor about a time that you belonged for a minute. And if you're on Zoom, if you would put it in the chat and let us know sometimes when you belonged, and Marian will read some of those when we come back together. So let's take literally a minute or 2 minutes. So go ahead and turn and share. So I'm going to skip the second part because we're coming to the end. But I hope that you all will remember this. And I did put some of our new organizational charts on the seat, which are not correct because now we know Janet Williams is doing Hope Dining Room, but it's correct on my spreadsheet here. I fixed that while we were sitting here. And one of the things that we know is that if you're not sure how things are organized, how do you know how you can find something you might try to do? So the Volunteer Empowerment Committee is very much trying to make it clear how you get to do stuff, how you can find things, how you can find someone, how you might be able to connect with an event, so that then you can say, oh, yeah, no, I met Janet, and Janet likes this, so we're going to try this together. How many of you do stuff outside of UUFN with other UUFN people? Right. I was going to say, Janet, we've been to the same place without it, wasn't it? So, sometimes it's just the people you're here with these people, but then you start to experience them and you find out, even if you're more alike than different, the differences can really attract you to somebody to say, I'd like to learn more about that, or that's really interesting. I've never experienced that, so that's a really interesting thing that I would like to find out more about. So I'm looking, and if you're not on a committee, but you're not a newcomer, please let us know. If you have, an hour to do something, or you can do stuff at home, or you like to do stuff online, or you like tech. They would love to have you if you like tech. Or even if you don't like it, but you're willing to learn it, something new, please let us know. And we are going to try and make that more aware and easier for people to connect and get that little spark. Because I've been on almost every committee, but I didn't stay on them forever. I was on them and I was like, oh, I did my thing, and I'm not going to stay here for 10 years. I'm going to go do something else for 10 years. But it really does work, and it really does matter.
And our closing words? You want them to sit or stand for
You
this?
may sit.
You may sit.
Please sit. Please sit. You may sit if you want. Or stand if you make your back go back.
These words are from the UUA. We come from many places, along different paths, bringing different truths. We come with different histories and different realities, and yet we come together as one people, with faith that we can use our differences to heal ourselves and each other, to bring wholeness to a fractured world. We come seeking to find community, to find acceptance of who we are. In this place, we may find others who are much like us and others who are much different. Let us remember that we are a people taught by different stories, with many voices, but always one people. Working for a world where love creates justice and justice gives birth to peace. Amen. Blessed be. And now we'll have our closing music.
So don't go away, because announcements are at the end now. So wait.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these vibes. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.